Hello humans, Master Dinnerflex here, bringing you the low quality content you deserve. And today I'm going to be starting something new. I've been actually wanting to do this for a little bit, but I just didn't know what I wanted to start with. And like the entire premise was kind of awkward with how like Yu-Gi-Oh cards are kind of inflating in price. But the concept is very simple. Some like YouTubers have already done something like this, but the idea is to make a deck under $100. But I didn't want to like just say $100. I wanted to have the entire main and extra deck done within $100, and this one is completely done. The only downside is it's $100 exactly and 4 dimes, so it's $100.40. But that's so close and so negligible that it should be fine. But a lot of these like budget builds, they don't include an extra deck. Like they just don't. They don't have like they run out of budget once they start the extra deck. But I wanted to take it to where, you know what? Here's an extra deck. You have a main and extra deck for these $100. Literally to stretch out everything you could possibly want for game 1. Game 2, yeah, you'll need a side deck. But like there's only so much you can do with $100. But the fact that I got 55 cards for a little more than $100, I think is really good. Yeah, that's basically it. And if you don't believe me, here's the price: $100.40 for every single card you see listed there. So let's get into it, and I'll explain my choices. So Arima. Oh, and if you haven't guessed what this deck is, it's my favorite deck, Lair Darkness. I'm going to be doing this for more decks, obviously. Like I think the next one might be Nephthys, or there's another one I wanted to try, but we'll get to that depending on if you guys want to see more of this. But the whole goal to keep in mind is I need to be able to put both a main and extra deck in there with under $100 or around $100. So let's get into it. Triple Arima to search Lair Darkness. Triple Lilith. It's the best with Lair Darkness. 2 Malice. Really good. Just another Lilith in the deck. 1 Diablos is the only one you need, and we cut it way too close, and Diablos is surprisingly one of the more expensive cards out of that structure deck, so even if you had room for more than one, you couldn't afford it, assuming you only have a $100 bill and 4 dimes. Then double Tour Guide from the Underworld, just more filler, and it's also more Liliths while you have Lair up. 1 Skarm, this can be sent with Curious, which is nice. But it's also a way for Arima to search the level 3s, which is really important. So that's good. This you just send with Curious to summon any Fiend from your hand, which is pretty much every Fiend in the deck except this big guy. And now, to explain this engine, funny enough, I've been experimenting with like actual versions of Lair. This engine is actually insane. So Dark Beckoning Beast at 3, Chaos Summoning Beast at 1, and then Shimmering Scrapper at 1. So, oh, and I guess this also is counted as part of the engine. So, if you don't know what these cards do, it's very simple. This, when it's normal summoned, will search any of these cards except itself. And this, when this is activated, will search any of these cards except itself. So what you do is you normal Dark Beckoning Beast, search this. This will search Chaos Summoning Beast, and if you know about the 1.5 card Curious, this is it. But it's also just kind of insane because this is like a discard outlet, so you can get like Diablos and Skarm in the grave, or even Stygian. It's a bunch of link fodder. It's like you can do so much with this engine, and this card is this deck's Sinister Serpent. Because it literally acts as Sinister Serpent, the only thing you have to do is tribute a monster to get it back to your hand. how would we do that in Lair of Darkness? Perhaps tributing an opponent's monster might be nice. And also it can just summon itself and be a big dude. And that's always pretty cool. And because of this engine, you'll just have so many monsters on board. You can actually just, like, tribute them off, link them off, do whatever. Just, like, this engine's actually insane. And it's one of the reasons I wanted to start with Lair of Darkness is because this engine's so cheap. And it actually outclasses Pot of Extravagance in every scenario. Except if you just don't draw it. That I wanted to experiment with this. And, like, I'm not even joking, if you're going to build budget Lair like this, like, this engine's super cheap, and it's super good in here, so, yeah, these cards amazing. Lair of Darkness, actually one of the more expensive cards in that structure deck, too, so, there wasn't a lot of wiggle room with this, and you can't play less than 3, I don't care what anyone says. Gates I already explained, but something I didn't explain is that while it's on the field, you can discard a card to revive any Dark Fiend with 0 attack and defense, not one or the other. So you can't revive these. You can only revive the Summoning Beast. But it's still just a free summon with your free Sinister Serpent, which puts itself back in hand for free because Lair of Darkness. Triple Allure of Darkness. This would be the replacement for Pot of Extravagance. Pretty simple. It's kind of annoying because Allure of Darkness is just not the card it used to be. You never want to really banish anything out of your hand in this deck. Because if you're banishing a play, you're saying, I'm going to trade this guaranteed play for a potential play that I draw into, or I could just not draw into a play. So, like, it sucks that it has that thing going for it, but if you even wanted to save a little more money, you could replace these for, like, some really cheap traps, and I wouldn't blame you, because Allure is pretty weak. And then Terraforming, because you need as many field spells as possible. Then for the traps, back to the front. Lost Wind for the replacement for Impermanence. Trap Trick is now cheap because it has a whole bunch of printings, and it's like a common printing out of a structure deck, and it was printed as a super rare in Secret Slayers. This thing's really cheap now, so it's really easy to just flood your main deck with these, so that's pretty cool. Compulse is cheap, Storm Dusters is cheap, and Metaverse is at 1 and it's cheap. So, yeah, that's actually a solid trap lineup too. Like, this isn't like filler traps. Like, the only thing that's like filler is like Lost Wind. That could be Impermanence instead, but everything else is like what you would normally see in like a Lair trap lineup if they're not playing artifacts. Now, side deck, like I explained, we just couldn't stretch the $100 bill far enough to get that far. But for the extra deck, Link Kribo, Anima, and Curious. That's how you make the 1.5 card Curious in this deck. And Curious is nice because it's your 5th summon. So if they're just really dumb and they Nibiru you just get to grab anything from your deck, and that's super funny. I love that part about this card, because this is a trap deck, so you can just leave it on board and say, if you deal with this, I get to grab anything I want back from my graveyard. And like I said, because it's traps, you're not going to die, so you can... this card is nice. Link Spider for all the tokens. Beat Cop because this is Lair. Akashek. It's a play with Tour Guide, but also one of the things I like about this is if you can make a bunch of Link monsters, Akashek is actually really nice because she has another effect that a lot of people don't remember she has, where if she has something co-linked to her, you can excavate the top cards of your deck up to the number of link ratings that the co-link monster has attached to her. So like, if a Nightmare Phoenix is attached, you can excavate too. But before you do that, you call a name of a card. And if the card is in that excavation that you named, you get to add all copies of that to your hand, but the rest go to the graveyard. Now that might seem pretty wacky in a Lair deck, but if you haven't noticed, there's a lot of 3-ofs in the deck. So you can just call, like, oh, I haven't seen Back to the Front yet. I'll call Back to the Front, mill one. If one's in there, you just grab it for free. Otherwise, you're not losing anything because they were in the deck and you weren't going to get them anyway. But if you could hit something and then just get a free card from it. So that's pretty cool. But also, it has its main effect is still to bounce something in one of the extra monster zone columns. And then board blocker to recycle Lair if they out it. Phoenix, Cerberus, Unicorn, Ningirsu, Decode Talker, Power Code Talker as like our substitute to Access Code or Boral Sword. This guy can make himself kind of beefy by attributing a monster in the damage step. That won't trigger Diablos, unfortunately, but he can still make himself big. And he can use tokens, which is nice. Curious, I explained Griffin as our only Link 4 is the only one that's like both cheap and good. And then finally Break Sword, because we have the tour guide engine in here. But yep, that's about it for the deck. It is just really solid. If you guys want to see more like profiles like this, where I literally go on TCG Player, find the cheapest listings, and try to make a 40 card main deck and 15 card extra deck, like around the $100 mark, let me know, because this was actually kind of fun to come up with. Because funny enough, like, the Lair monsters and like the Lair cards were actually kind of like a huge chunk of this. Like, normally you think, oh, the main deck's like $30, and then like the extra deck is like where all the money's at. But nah, it was honestly the other way around. Like, I think the most expensive extra deck monster in here is actually like Phoenix. So, oh no, I guess it's Unicorn and Phoenix. Like, those cards are a little, but like it wasn't really that bad. It was just like Arima, Diablos, Lair of Darkness, Lilith. They were surprisingly more than I expected. And this was a fun challenge, and I really want to do this again. But if you want to see it again, let me know. But that's about it. Thank you all for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. And remember, Master Dinnerflax will take your soul.